Orders of the day, ordre du jour.
Orders of the day, resuming consideration of a privilege motion concerning failure to produce documents pertaining to Sustainable Development Technology Canada and of a sub-amendment standing in the name of Mr. Kelly.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Rocky Ridge has 10 minutes of questions and comments. So questions and comments, the Honourable Member for St. John's Rothsay.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I certainly want to thank and acknowledge my good friend across the House on his speech, although we must have drew the short straw to have to get up there and do that for 10 minutes. But I do have a question for him with respect to what the Commissioner of the RCMP said. And I'm going to quote, "The RCMP's ability to receive and use information obtained through this production order and under the compulsory powers afforded by the Auditor General Act in the course of a criminal investigation could give rise to concerns under the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. It is therefore highly unlikely that any information obtained by the RCMP under the motion where privacy interests exist could be used to support a criminal prosecution or further a criminal investigation. There is significant risk that the motion could be interpreted as a circumvention of normal investigative process in charter protections." Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I know my friend opposite knows that what's happening in the House right now is a debacle. It's a waste of all of our time. We come up here to do good things for our ridings. So I'd like my friend opposite to respond to that quote. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Calgary Rocky Ridge.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank my friend, and indeed he's my friend from St. John Rothsay's. And the argument that he is making, I guess I'll start, he asked me to comment on the Commissioner's views. I disagree with the Commissioner, but that's not the point. The time to make that argument was back in June when we voted on the motion. This is no longer a debate about whether the House should request the documents. The House has requested the documents.
Absolutely.
So complying with the order of the House is what this government has failed to do.
Right.
And I don't agree with him, though, that that this is a debacle, only to the extent that then yes, the House is paralyzed because the government won't table the documents, and there are several remedies available to the government. The first remedy, and the most important one, would be to call an election. If this place is not functional, we need to elect a new government that can earnestly deal with the important problems facing this country. And I think this member is well on the record agreeing that the Prime Minister ought to step down. He ought to step down and call an election.
Good answer. Good answer.
José commentaires, questions and comments. The Honourable Member for Calgary Shepherd.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to ask a colleague of mine who's from the opposite side of the city of Calgary. You know, we're talking about close to $400 million that was corruptly spent by at least 9 directors that the Auditor General has identified as having participated in at least 186 corrupt decisions out of a sample size of about 400 that were looked at. But I'm wondering if my colleague could perhaps describe what could we have done with the close to $400 million that was corruptly spent? Could we have cut taxes? Could we have reduced the national debt? Could we have put it towards other uses that his constituents would like to see?
For Calgary Rocky Ridge.
Well, the member is absolutely right. $400 million could have been that was misallocated by Liberal insiders that were deliberately appointed by the previous minister. The misappropriation of that money could have gone to any of a number of things, including housing our troops, where we have a base housing problem, where our men and women in the armed forces don't have access to housing. That's just one thing that would instantly leap out at me, because we've debated that in the House. So there are any of a number of things. He's right. They could have lowered taxes by $400 million. They could have not incurred another $400 million in debt. Instead, under this government's watch, in front with the minister's own senior officials present, these Liberal insiders chose to give the money to themselves.
Questions and comments, the honourable member for Kitchener Centre.
Madam Speaker, as the member likely knows, Greens supported the original motion back in June. We support the documents being provided as the House has called for. We also want to see the House operate. This is a significant amount of money. It's $400 million, but so too is the operations of this place. The math I have is recent as of the beginning of this week. We've now had 160 Conservatives speak to this motion. If you assume it takes about $70,000 or so per hour that this House operates to operate the House of Commons, that adds up to 80 hours. It's $5.6 million spent speaking about the same motion when many of us, myself included, would like to vote on the motion, to send it to committee, to have committee report to us on doing exactly as I understand the Conservatives want to do, which is to get back to that original motion in June. Can the member speak to any concerns he has with using this amount of taxpayer money to continue talking about the exact same motion when we could just vote on it?
Member for Calgary Rocky Ridge.
I'd be delighted to comment on those things. I would say that the cost to operate this Parliament is a small price to pay if we are debating a motion that goes to the actual democratic accountability of this government, but also that has the side benefit, Madam Speaker, of preventing this government from introducing more bad laws that will harm Canadians. I talked about that in my speech, Madam Speaker. I noted that on the legislative calendar of the government is the imposition of a new destructive tax that expert testimony at the Finance Committee has said will further erode Canadian productivity and result in less taxes collected for the Crown. So I have no problem with using the tools available to us as parliamentarians to force this government to do what this House has ordered it to do, and that is to produce the documents so that we can absolutely get to the bottom of this $400 million debacle.
Questions and comments, the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House.
Yes, Madam Speaker, I cannot believe the member's defence by saying it's too late. We found out too late that what the Conservatives are asking for goes against what the RCMP want, go against what the provincial auditor or Canada's Auditor General want, goes against what other legal experts are saying. We can't do it. We still should do it anyway. Who cares what they say? Here is what Stephen Chaplin, who is a former senior legal counsel of the Office of the House Law Clerk in the Parliament Council. This is what he says. Quote, "It is time for the House to admit its overreach before the matter inevitably finds its way to the courts, which do have the ability to determine the limit of the House's powers, often beyond what the House may like." Whether the member likes it or not, Madam Speaker, they are borderline in contempt of Parliament by continuing on this issue, Madam Speaker. That is something in which all Canadians should be concerned with. It is not too late to listen to what the RCMP and the Auditor General and other law experts are saying. When will they start to listen to those experts as opposed to the leader of the self-serving Conservative Party?
The Honourable Member for Calgary Rocky Ridge.
There's a little bit to unpack there, Madam Speaker, but I will start with if the votes in this chamber are to mean anything, they have to be respected. So it is to, I'm being heckled right now, Madam Speaker. This is amazing. I'm being heckled by the parliamentary secretary to the government house leader who is chirping from the sidelines telling me, oh, no, we don't have to follow the votes of the House of Commons. The votes in the House of Commons don't need to mean anything. That's amazing. That might have been what the Prime Minister was getting at when he admired the dictatorship of the PRC. That parliaments don't matter, that their votes don't matter, that the government can act with impunity. Is that really what the member for Winnipeg North believes? That the votes of this parliament should be just disregarded if the government doesn't like them? That's not how democracy works. And yes, he's put forward a couple of fairly tired at this point arguments against the disclosure of these documents. the time for that argument was in the spring. The ship has sailed. The RCMP are welcome to make no use or any use of these documents. But the House has pronounced on this matter, and it's about time the government listened to the people who were elected in this House of Commons and their vote.